The year was 1878, and the San Juan Mountains wore their winter mantle like a shroud. Snow lay thick on the high passes, and the wind carried the scent of pine and gunpowder. In the small mining settlement of Black Hollow, folks spoke the name Gideon Blackthorn in the same hushed tone they reserved for grizzlies and avalanches. He was 6'4" in his moccasins, broad as a barn door, with a beard the color of wet iron that reached his chest. Scars crisscrossed his forearms like bad roads. No one knew exactly how many men he'd killed. Some said 8, some said 18, but everyone agreed the number was higher than any honest man ought to carry. He lived alone in a log cabin above timberline, came down only twice a year for powder, coffee, and nails, and never spoke more than 3 words together. Children were told he ate the hearts of claim jumpers. Grown men crossed the street when they saw his shadow. So when Laurel Crowe, owner of the Lucky Jenny mine and the nearest thing Black Hollow had to a mayor, announced that his only daughter Laurel would wed Gideon Blackthorn in 3 days' time, the saloon fell so quiet you could hear the snowflakes land on the tin roof. Laurel Crowe was 21, willow-slender, with hair the color of new copper and eyes that held summer even in January. She played piano at the Sunday meetings, read poetry to the schoolchildren, and once nursed a half-frozen mule colt back to life with nothing but warm mash and determination. She was the settlement's light. And now that light was being snuffed out to pay her father's debts. The story was simple and ugly. Elias had borrowed heavily from a Denver syndicate to keep the Lucky Jenny running after the vein pinched out. When the payments came due and the silver didn't, the syndicate sent a man named Harlan Voss, cold-eyed, city-suited, pearl-handled colt on his hip. Voss gave Elias 2 choices: hand over the mine outright or watch his daughter marry the one man mean enough to scare even Voss's hired guns away from collecting by force. Gideon Blackthorn, it turned out, held paper on half the high country claims between Durango and Ouray. He never foreclosed. He simply waited until the owners starved, froze, or ran. Then he took what was left. Voss figured if Laurel became Gideon's wife, the syndicate could quietly absorb the Lucky Jenny while everyone pretended the marriage was romantic instead of a transaction sealed in fear. Laurel heard the news at supper. Her father wouldn't meet her eyes. Her mother wept silently into her apron. "You can't do this," Laurel said, voice steady though her hands shook. "I won't." "You will," Elias answered, "or Voss will burn this house with us inside it. Gideon's the only thing standing between us and a bullet. He gave his word you'll be safe." "Safe?" Laurel laughed, sharp and bitter. "Locked in a cabin with a murderer who hasn't spoken a civil sentence in 10 years? That's your idea of safe?" Elias slammed his palm on the table. "It's the only idea we've got." The wedding was held on Saturday at noon in the half-finished church. No flowers, no music, just a circuit preacher who smelled of whiskey and a crowd of miners who came mostly to see if Gideon would actually show. He did, riding a huge black gelding with icicles in its mane, wearing a bearskin coat and carrying a Sharps rifle across his saddle like a scepter. Laurel stood in her mother's old lace dress, chin high, refusing to tremble. When the preacher asked if she took this man, she answered, "I do," so clearly the echo bounced off the rafters. Gideon's voice was gravel dragged over iron. "I do." No kiss. No smile. He simply turned, lifted her onto the gelding as though she weighed nothing, and rode out of Black Hollow without another word. The crowd watched them disappear up the switchbacks until the snow swallowed them both. For 3 weeks no one saw Laurel. Then Old Man Tully, trapping marten near the tree line, spotted smoke from Gideon's cabin and, miracle of miracles, saw a woman's figure moving outside, splitting kindling with an axe almost as tall as she was. Word spread fast, the mountain man hadn't killed her. Yet. Spring came late that year. When the passes finally opened, a delegation of 5 men, Elias among them, rode up to Gideon's place to check on the girl. They found Laurel hanging laundry on a line strung between two pines. Her hair was tied back with a strip of calico, her cheeks flushed from work, and she was humming. She didn't look like a prisoner. She looked busy. Gideon stepped onto the porch, shotgun in the crook of his arm. The delegation froze. "She's fine," he said. 2 words. More than most had ever heard from him. Laurel turned, wiping her hands on her apron. "Pa, gentlemen." Her voice was calm. "Would you like coffee?" They declined. They left. But the story grew legs. Laurel Crowe wasn't dead. She wasn't cowering. She was living with the beast, and apparently thriving. Summer brought trouble. Harlan Voss returned with 6 riders, all hard men wearing new cartridge belts. He wanted the Lucky Jenny papers signed over clean. Elias had stalled as long as he could. Now Voss meant business. They rode straight to Gideon's cabin. Laurel saw them first. She was gathering wild raspberries along the creek when the line of horsemen appeared on the ridge. She dropped the basket and ran. Gideon met her at the door. He'd already seen them. He handed her the sharps. "You know how to use this?" She nodded once. "Back door. If they get past me, shoot the first one through. Then run for the high meadow. There's a cave behind the waterfall. Stay 3 days. I'll find you. I'm not leaving you." His eyes, gray as slate, met hers for the first time without looking away. "You will." He stepped outside. Voss reined up 20 yards from the porch. "Blackthorn. We've business." Gideon didn't answer. Voss smiled thinly. "The girl's father owes a debt. We aim to collect. Step aside, let us speak with her." "She's my wife," Gideon said. "You talk to me." Voss laughed. "Your wife? That's rich. Everyone knows she was sold to keep her old man breathing. Step aside, mountain man, or we'll burn you out same as we would any squatter." Gideon shifted the shotgun to his shoulder. "Last man who called me squatter is fertilizing the aspens below Pinyon Ridge. You want to join him?" 6 rifles came up. Gideon didn't flinch. Then Laurel appeared in the doorway, the sharps leveled. "You're on my land," she said. "And I don't recall inviting you." The riders hesitated. A woman with a buffalo gun was a new variable. Voss sneered. "You think you can shoot, girl?" "I know I can," she answered. "Question is, how many of you want to find out before lunch?" Silence stretched. Wind moved the pines. Somewhere a jay screamed. Voss finally lifted a gloved hand. "Stand down." The rifles lowered. "We'll be back," Voss said. "With more men and a warrant." Gideon's voice was quiet thunder. "Bring them. I've got plenty of lead to share." Voss turned his horse. The riders followed. When the last man disappeared over the ridge, Laurel lowered the sharps. Her hands shook now. Gideon looked at her. "You didn't run. You didn't ask nicely," she said. A ghost of something, maybe a smile, touched his mouth and vanished. That night they sat by the fire. For the first time, Gideon spoke more than 2 sentences. "Voss won't stop. He'll come with a posse next time. Maybe federal marshals if he can buy them." Laurel stirred the beans. "Then we fight." He studied her. "You're not afraid?" "I'm terrified," she admitted. "But I'm more afraid of living like a ghost. I've done enough of that already." He nodded slowly. "I never wanted a wife. I never wanted a husband," she replied. "But here we are." He poked the fire. Sparks rose like tiny stars. "I killed men. More than you want to know." I figured. Some deserved it. Some, maybe not. She met his gaze. You ever kill a woman? No. A child? No. Then you're not the devil they say you are. He looked away. I let them think I am. Keeps folks distant. Why'd you agree to marry me? She asked quietly. For a long moment he didn't answer. Then, saw you once. 2 summers back. You were reading to the school kids under the cottonwood. Sun was behind you. Looked like fire in your hair. I stayed longer than I meant to. Rode off before anyone noticed. Laurel felt heat climb her cheeks. You were watching me? Didn't plan to. Just happened. She smiled despite herself. And now you're stuck with me. Reckon I am. The next morning Gideon rode down to Black Hollow alone. He found Elias in the Lucky Jenny office, head in his hands. You sold your daughter, Gideon said without preamble. Elias flinched. I had no choice. You had choices. You picked the easiest. I was trying to keep us alive. Gideon leaned on the desk. You still want the mine? Elias looked up, confused. Of course. Then listen close. I'm giving you the Lucky Jenny free and clear. No strings. But you sign it over to Laurel. Not you. Not Voss. Her name on the deed. Elias blinked. Why? Because she's earned it. And because if Voss comes for her again, he'll have to come through me first. But I'd rather she owned something worth fighting for. Elias stared. You're serious. As a grave. The old man swallowed. What about you? What do you get? Gideon straightened. A chance to see if a man can change his shadow. Word spread like wildfire. Gideon Blackthorn had given away a producing silver mine. To his wife. The same wife everyone thought he'd bought like livestock. Voss returned 2 weeks later with 12 men and a forged warrant. They rode up the valley at dawn, expecting to find a cabin full of sleepers. They found barricades of logs, a trench across the only approach, and Gideon Blackthorn standing on the roof with the sharps. Beside him stood Laurel, reloading a Spencer carbine with steady hands. Voss shouted, "This is legal authority. Surrender the woman and the mine." Gideon's voice carried clear across the snowmelt creek. She owns the mine. She owns this land. You've got no paper here worth the ink. Voss laughed. You think 2 people can hold off 12? Worked for the Alamo for a while, Gideon answered. Let's see how long we last. Laurel stepped forward. Mr. Voss, my father signed the deed yesterday. It's recorded in Durango. You want the Lucky Jenny, you'll have to buy it fair. Or steal it. But if you steal it, every miner from here to Silverton will know you for what you are. And they'll remember. Voss hesitated. The miners in his own crew shifted in their saddles. Gideon added quietly, and if you kill us today, I promise you this, I won't die quick. I'll take half of you with me. Maybe more. You ready to pay that price for a played-out claim? Silence. One of Voss's men muttered, ain't worth it, boss. Silver's thin anyway. Voss's jaw worked. He looked from Gideon's steady rifle to Laurel's unflinching gaze. Finally he spat into the dirt. You haven't heard the last of this. I expect not, Gideon said. But next time bring better manners. Voss wheeled his horse. The posse followed, tails low. They never came back. Autumn arrived with gold in the aspens. Gideon and Laurel were seen in Black Hollow on Saturday afternoons, her riding beside him on a gentle bay mare he'd traded for, him carrying supplies without a scowl. Folks stared, then nodded. Some even tipped their hats. One evening in October, Laurel sat on the porch watching the alpenglow paint the peaks rose. Gideon joined her, 2 tin cups of coffee in hand. She took one. "You shocked them, you know." "Who?" "Everyone. They thought you'd kill me, or lock me away, or turn me hard. Instead you gave me a mine and stood between me and bullets." He sipped. "Didn't plan to shock anybody. Just didn't want you to hate me." "I don't hate you," she said softly. He looked at her then, really looked. "Good. Because I'm starting to like having you around." She smiled. High praise from the most feared mountain man in the San Juans. He grunted. "Most feared's wearing thin. Starting to think respected might fit better." Laurel leaned her head on his shoulder. For once, he didn't pull away. Winter came again. Snow piled high. Inside the cabin, a fire crackled. Laurel read aloud from a book of poems while Gideon sharpened his axe. Sometimes he listened. Sometimes he just watched her face in the firelight. Black Hollow told the story for years, how the monster of the high country turned out to have a heart after all. How a forced marriage became a chosen one. How a woman who was sold became a woman who stood her ground, and the man who stood beside her. And when spring broke the following year, folks noticed Gideon Blackthorn had trimmed his beard. Not much. Just enough so you could see the faint smile when Laurel laughed. Turned out the most feared man in the mountains wasn't a monster at all. He was simply waiting for someone brave enough to see past the scars.